Hey everybody, welcome back to Escape Reality Star Wars Talk. I'm your host Caleb.
Hi, I'm Seth. I talk Star Wars with this man. I guess we're doing speed today.
Yeah, so we're pre-recording today because of work and just conflicting schedules this week. Sorry it took us 2 weeks to get to this, but we decided,
Yeah. Last week was my fault because basically was like, hey, I can't be here when we normally would be here.
yeah, and I couldn't really find a way to make it work up beforehand.
Yeah.
So, plus it gave us time to finish both comics because otherwise we would have only had one of the comics done.
Yes.
So it worked out. And we got it on time enough that we'll still be able to do the next thing I want to do on time. Which we'll talk about what next week's one is at the end of the show.
Yep.
As usual.
Normally we'd have the whole,
What we've been up
what
to.
we've been up to.
But also, it feels weird to do that when we're pre-recording. Because, while yes, we'd be catching you up on what we're up to right now, it also then doesn't apply to when the episode comes out.
We recorded this a day ahead of time. I think
Something could happen within a day. Okay, fine. What have you been up to? The past 2 weeks.
There's 2 weeks of stuff to go.
Okay, what have you been up to?
Okay. First off, went and I didn't entirely complete it, but I've gone through the story of Deus Ex Mankind Divided, whole game, the 3 DLC missions for it. Man, an interesting game to pick during our time of 2025.
I mean, it's going to be next week's topic will be just as interesting considering for same reasons.
There's a lot.
Not to get too political.
Not to get too.
But then again, it's Star Wars. You know what? You know what? It's Star Wars. We're not afraid to be political here.
And although it's a 10-year game,
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil too much, so I will just talk about my favorite side mission.
God, Mankind Divided being 10 years old.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think about.
Also, one of the games that's designed for the system that I fucking own, alongside it and Bloodborne. So they actually work pretty well.
Yeah. You kind of forget that, it's 10 years old because you're like, nah, because the old Deus Ex games are really old, so obviously, Mankind Divided can't be that old, and then you remember Deus Ex 1 is 2000.
Yep.
It's 25 years old,
it's
about.
the same age as me.
Just about. It's, let's see, June, so in June it'll be 25.
Yeah.
Putting my producer skills to the task here, looking things up real quick.
So, favorite side mission, right?
Yeah.
Is basically you come back to Prague because that's where most of the game takes place, is in Prague. You go out a couple of times to a ghetto called Golem City. That's the local colloquial term for it. The actual name of it is the Udalek Complex. So that's another thing. End game mission takes place in London, of all places, because Deus Ex games are we're gonna have you in this one area, and then we're gonna send you off to a random one at the end. Because fuck our game taking place in one location.
Yeah.
And so, you get back, second visit to Prague, right? And it's you get a call from one of your coworkers, and they're like, oh my god, I thought, Jensen, are you okay? I heard, an AUG got attacked near your apartment complex. I was checking to make sure it wasn't you. Because you live in the shitty part of town. And he's like, no, I'm good. And, of course, the little point of interest shows up where it's oh, you can go here. And so it's alright, I'll go here. And getting there, there's Because God forbid I ever play a game where the invitation is not like someone's severed hand in a box or some shit. Everyone else, Stardew Valley, Tori and Kinsey, and everyone else playing Minecraft. Me,
Yeah, yeah,
no police investigations and like eldritch monsters to go fight.
yeah. When I came to pick you up today, they were playing. I saw Tori playing Minecraft.
Mhm. And so I'm like, okay. And there's this lady and this cop, this like, and then there's another cop, right?
Hmm.
And so the lady is like, the cop, you walk up to him and he's like, God, I wish this lady would give me some information, but she's not talking to us, which is a smart thing to do, but also I can't do my job if she's not talking to us. And so he's that's like, oh, go and talk to this woman. Her name is Daria. So you go over and you start talking with Daria.
Is she friends with Beavis and Butthead?
I don't think so.
You get the reference, though.
I do.
Yeah.
And so talking with her, I'm like, okay. And she's like, I might have saw something. And I'm like, don't fucking play this game. And so I go and I'm like, alright. I ask her a bunch of questions. And eventually she's like, I did not want to talk to the police. And she goes, why? And I'm like, yeah, I get it. I wouldn't want to talk to them either, but if you don't help people, more people are just going to get hurt.
Yeah. That'd be bad.
Which sucks, considering that the lady who you may or may not have seen something is lying 3 feet to the left with their augmentations torn off. Within eyesight. And so go and talk with her and go over to get done with that, right? And I go and I talk to the cop that they've got, and he's like, man, I am 2 months away from retirement. I don't know, and I've been working a desk for 15 years. I don't know why they sent me out here. I guess headquarters just fucking hates me. And I'm like, alright. And we're kind of getting into a discussion of, he's like, so some context about who your protagonist is. Jensen is also a former cop, but he retired a lot sooner.
Mm-hmm.
After a really bad, like, hostage situation, he quit because he was like, nope, I can't do this shit, man. And you go and you're talking to Montag, who's been a cop for, like, enough to retire. And so, he's like, hey, you can look around and see what you can dig up, because I'm gonna be honest, I haven't done field work in a while. So I could use a hand. And so you go, you look around, get everything, and you go and you talk back with him, and it's like, hey, is there anything else I should know about? And he's like, well, it kind of reminds me, based on some of the evidence that you've gathered, it's like, he's like, it reminds me of this other case file that one of my coworkers had a while back, which is really weird, because the guy from that is fucking dead. He's like, but you can go and check it out if you want. And I'm like, alright, cool, I'll do that. So I go... So I go and I break... Oh, also, this woman... The dead woman... I should clarify, not Daria. Is like a reporter. She's like, oh... And he's like, I think the... Montauk is like, I think the husband did it.
Go ahead.
And so... I'm like, well... I'm gonna go and make sure that the evidence we've got lines up. Because there's, like, a partial, like, fingerprint on the neck, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's, like, a bunch of other evidence and such. But that's the main one, right? And he's like, go look into Johnny Gunn. Because if not, I'll keep my guys off. Let me know if, like, this guy... If this guy actually did it or not. And if he didn't, get me enough evidence that he didn't. So that we can basically let him walk away, right? So I go into Johnny Gunn's apartment, and he's like, "Who do you think you are? Just busting into my apartment." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I hate to tell you this, but your wife got murdered, and you're the number one suspect." And he's like, "Well, thanks. You're not the person who told me this. The police called me over the phone, and we're like, hey, we're gonna send a guy over. Basically, you better not be fucking guilty." I'm like, "Well, they're a bunch of assholes. Also, I know that you used to work for Bell Tower based on the patch on your jacket." So I go and I talk with him and I search his room, his apartment, and I'm like, "Congratulations. I don't think you did it." And he goes, "Why?" And that's not. I'm summarizing the conversation.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Well, you see, your hands are made of alloy. You can't leave fingerprints. So you didn't kill them." Thing is, Mr. Gunn is very antisocial and does not like people very much.
Yeah.
So he's very upset, but he doesn't. Bless you.
Thank you.
But he doesn't, like, actually stop you from looking around or asking him questions. He's very much like, "Thanks for telling me that my ex-wife is dead," and not breaking into my apartment, but coming and questioning me about it.
Yeah.
You know, like an asshole. And so I'm like, "Alright. Well, you didn't do it." And so I go down to Montauk, who is still out in that same alleyway, by the way. He's like, "Yeah, I sent Daria home after I asked her some questions." And I'm like, "Alright." So I also went and looked into that old case file by breaking into the old police station. And I'm like, yeah, it does have a lot of similarities to that other killer called the Harvester a while back. And he's like, "Well, that guy's dead, so it's probably a copycat." And I'm like, "Okay. Got it." So, leave, come back, because gameplay has to happen
Yeah.
in time. So, this time, get a call over the phone.
Actual main story has to take
Main
place.
story has to happen. And this time when I got a call from Daria, it's during the time in the game when martial law's been declared for all of Prague, with the cover story being like, "Oh no, the riots from Golem City got it pretty close, so now we're just gonna shut everything down."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh, that's not good." And Daria's like, "Oh, there's someone in my apartment. I don't know who it is. Yada yada." And I'm like, "Well, I guess I should probably go deal with that. Even though me being outside right now is like, they can and they will just shoot you if they see you.
Yeah.
Because you're not supposed to be out there."
Because that's how martial law works.
And so I'm like, "Fine, okay, I'll go." The fortunate thing is Daria is like your neighbor, so you live kind of in the same apartment complex.
Oh, okay, so it's like you're not really going outside.
Oh no, you have to get from the police station back to your apartment complex. Because Chicane is an asshole.
Okay.
But he also is like, "I can't go anywhere. They won't let me, like, fly there.
Yeah.
I don't want to get shot down." And so I'm like, "Alright." So I make my way over to Daria's apartment, and Detective Montauk is also like, "Yeah, I've been hanging out, trying to figure out what the fuck is going on from those old case notes and a bunch of other shit." And he's like, "It's really weird that you're here." And I was like, "Oh, Daria called me over the phone to come and, like, help her."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "It's a little weird that you're here too." So there's like a weird moment where we're both kind of standing there like, Are you guilty?
Are you supposed to be here?
Are you supposed to be here?"
It's the
Yeah.
Spider-Man.
Pretty much, yeah. And it's like, "Oh, well." And Montauk is like, "You know what, man? I'm gonna go and look over the case notes one more time to make sure I've got everything." And so I go into Daria's apartment, because God fucking forbid you have two options of getting in. You can either do a hacking minigame to unlock your fucking keypad, or you can do what I do when I get frustrated and fucking tired of the door, because the doors have a health bar, which is just to whip out your gun and shoot the fucking thing.
Yeah, that seems about right.
Fortunately, I learned how the hacking minigame works, so I didn't have to do that.
Yay.
That didn't stop some other doors I had to shoot.
Yeah,
later,
and you know, you're like, I don't have time to learn it yet.
yeah. But I get into
Or
her
I guess
apartment.
because futuristic. Pew.
Yeah.
Rather than.
Look, that is the sound the silenced pistol makes. It's just the one I had the most ammunition for.
Oh, it's pew pew.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so I get into the apartment, and the first thing is like, that's a lot of blood. So I go and I'm like looking around, and I'm like, that's more blood, that's not good. And I go and I'm like, that's weird. Why is the blood leading out of the closet instead of into the closet?
Yeah.
So I go and I'm like, that's odd. I keep looking around, and I'm like, so I go and I hack into her computer, because I can do that. And I go and I'm looking through her emails, and she's got this email from a doctor that's like, hey Daria, I think you should come in for an appointment, because you're not looking that great. You're kind of being weird and sketchy recently. And I'm like, okay. And like the little side thing is like, you can go and talk to this doctor guy. And I'm like, alright, I should probably do that, even though, you know, martial law, and that's in an entirely different district. And I was also... So I keep looking around the apartment, and I'm like, it's weird that you have a fucking telescope pointed at my apartment door.
Yeah.
So I go and I'm like, alright, that's not good. So I decide, I guess I'll go and visit that doctor guy before I follow that ominous blood trail. So I go, sneak over to where the doctor guy is, and he's like, who the fuck are you and what are you doing here? Which is about how everything goes in Deus Ex when you're just minding your business.
Yeah.
I guess not really in this case. That's actually a pretty good question, considering the circumstances.
Yeah. Yeah.
Someone, if you're hanging out at your work because you can't go home from martial law, and this fucking shady government-looking agent guy shows up to your doorstep. That's probably a good question. And so I start asking him, I'm like, what do you know about Daria? And he's like, I can't say shit, man. I'm like, she's gotten caught up in some serial killer shit. You need to start talking now. And so he's like, okay, well, a couple of years ago, I used to work for Tai Young Medical. And I'm like, oh, you mean that super fucking shady company that caused, like, the big, massive thing in the last game? That caused, like, one of the worst things to happen? And he's like, yeah, them. I was like, okay. And so I go and I ask him, alright, what exactly did you do? And he's like, well, what we were trying to do is they were like, so we wanted to make basically a little biochip, right?
Mm-hmm.
That would help people with things like, they were like, we were trying to get rid of, like, social anxiety, chronic depression, stuff like that. And I was like, okay, how did you try to do that? And they were like, well, as you can guess, people weren't exactly signing up to have, like, their brains dug through, for lack of a better term. So we started getting volunteers from prisons. And I was like, that's not good. And Jensen pretty much is like, yeah, I fucking hate everything that you've told me about. And so he goes and he explains, like, yeah, we were trying to help Daria, and we found one prisoner that like helped get rid of like because she has really bad social anxiety, and they're like, yeah, we found one that matched pretty well for what she like was going through. And keep in mind this was all experimental; they didn't really have anything. And so it's like, yeah, so we matched her up with this guy called Svobotka, also known as the Harvester, this fucking serial killer from like 12 years ago. And I'm like, okay, so let me get this straight. You thought that putting in, because he was like, well, we wanted to help her be less anxious. And I'm like, great, that's a noble goal. Shame you gave them, you, shame you decided for some reason being like, this serial killer one will work. And I'm like, the fuck is wrong with you?
It's like you had so many other options.
Well, they had other options that weren't serial killers, I hope. If not, oof. And so he's like, look, man, you get that chip from her. It's like in the base of her neck. And I'm like, okay. He's like, by the way, you will need to kill her for this. And I'm like, there's got to be another way. And he's like, well, you could do it non-lethally, but it'd probably be better if you just went and killed her. And I was like, that's fucked up. Also, sorry.
No, you're good.
And so I go and I'm like, alright. I guess I will handle this as best as I can. So I go so I go back to the apartment and follow the ominous blood trail that leads into the sewers. Because why wouldn't it? And I go and I keep following it until eventually I get to Daria. And Daria is like, oh no, someone's here and they've kidnapped me. And I'm like, well, that's bullshit, but I'll try talking first.
Yeah.
Because I want to try to do that. I'm not gonna just go in there. I'm not gonna just be like, oh, well, that's a damn shame. Bang. Because I prefer to, even in games where it's like, you probably should just use the lethal option.
Yeah.
I prefer a non-lethal approach. Surprisingly, I know. And so I go and I'm like, and she's like, oh no, I've been kidnapped. They're coming to get me. And I'm like, oh really, where are they then? And so she's like, so we go back and forth and have this like, okay, well, where is he? Let me know so I can go and take him out and then come back to you. Like, playing along for a little bit. And then she's like, alright, I don't care anymore. I'm like, also, I know it was you who killed that lady, by the way. And she's like, alright, enough of the games. And just takes a gun out. I was like... Jensen has a mildly surprised reaction, or I'm like, okay, well, this is just fucking great, isn't it? And then she's like, I'm gonna... Anytime an enemy or someone is like, I'm gonna purify you, I'm like, okay, right, we're in Crazy Town, population you. And so she's like, because that's what the serial killer that they decided to put the same shit in her head. She won't be socially anxious. She might kill a few ogs every once in a while. I'm like, that's not good.
It's like, that's not much better.
Like, congratulations, asshole. No more social anxiety. Serial kill rate goes up. I'm like, that's not good. But back to the situation. She set up a fucking battle arena. I'm like, this worked out, pretty well. Except for the small fact of, I just decided, I'm just gonna hide.
You're like, I'm in the Thunderdome. I'm not gonna take part of it.
Yeah. And so, like, here's a fun thing. One of the augments basically makes you bulletproof. You know what it doesn't make you proof against? Being punched really hard in the fucking throat, apparently.
Yeah.
Because, like, Daria gets up. I had gotten to, like, a little
To
balcony.
be fair, there's not a lot of ways to avoid that as a mechanical defense. Like, there's not a lot to.
Yeah. Oh, no. Like, it's like a black shell of, like, armor that just kind of, like, spawns in over people. You would think punching that wouldn't work. Turns out it does. And so she, like, jumps up to where I'm at. She doesn't know where I am. Keep in mind, this is a non-lethal takedown, by the way.
Okay.
And so Jensen's non-lethal ones are a lot calmer than the lethal takedowns, because the game gives you that option.
Yeah.
But they're still very much like, grab someone and just headbutt the shit out of them. This one is just right to the throat. Which apparently, bulletproof AUG doesn't fucking matter.
Well, it's bulletproof AUG, not punch proof.
Yeah. And so she gets knocked out, and it's like, congratulations. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna take this fucking chip out.
Maybe it's a speed thing.
Maybe, but
like,
also Jensen's arms are like, they're basically reinforced titanium, so maybe he just fucking hits people that hard.
Because, like, you don't punch somebody at the same speed as a bullet, even if you're augmented.
Yeah.
Like, he's not that fast. He's fast.
Yeah.
He's fast. You can make Jensen really fast, but not that fast.
And so, which just renders her unconscious, right? And I'm like, take chip out. And I'm like, so the game is like, we can either go and give this to Detective Montag, who, like, throughout the side missions has been like, I am very old, I am very tired, but I do AUG or no. Just because the city doesn't care doesn't mean I'm not gonna try and get things done properly.
Yeah.
So the options are, you can give it to Montag, or you can go and give it to that shady doctor that caused this entire fucking problem.
Shady doctor. No.
Well, the shady doctor is like, I can pay you. He's also the one that recommends killing Daria. I'm also like, I don't want to do that.
That's
also,
why
fuck Tai Young Medical. They have done nothing but cause problems. Including the one I just had to fix by punching this poor lady in the throat.
Whose armor apparently works on Dune logic for armor.
Yeah, I guess.
You use a knife, but not a gun.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of guns, as you leave, Detective Montag is like, it was fucking you! I'm like, no, man, I've been dealing with a bunch of bullshit. And you can go and you can explain, and he's like, God damn. And, like, you have to convince him to not fucking shoot you. Because all the evidence that he's got is, like...
It points to you.
to me. And I'm like, I can't be mad at him, because he's got all this evidence that is like, yeah, this guy.
And you're like, you got some good evidence.
Yeah. So you have to convince him and explain the situation. And, like, if you try to use your, like, social manipulation mod to make the thing easier, he's like, I may have been at a desk for 15 years,
but I know
I've
an
been
AUG.
a cop for 40. You shut that shit off.
He's like, I know an AUG when I see it.
Yeah, he is like, I know when people are using social manipulation AUGs.
It's like in like a D&D game when you do friendship and then the spell ends and they're like, you motherfucker.
Yeah, except it'd be like, as soon as they started to cast it, if they were like, nope, I know what that is, don't do that again, or I will fucking kill you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, here's the evidence I've got. Here's this fucking old case file. Here's the goddamn report from the doctor. Here's the emails. Better yet, here's the fucking chip that caused this goddamn situation.
Yeah, basically you provide your evidence to counteract his evidence. And
he's like, shit, man, you give me a fucking month to deal with this? He's like, fine, get out of here.
thanks for the evidence.
Yeah.
Now I gotta do a bunch of paperwork.
Yeah, fuck you. But also thank you. But fuck you, I'm a month from retirement and I gotta deal with providing evidence and showing up to court against a fucking corporation.
Is he really a month from retirement?
He really is.
Does he follow the trope?
God, I don't know. I don't know. That's my last interaction with him.
You're like, does he die?
I don't know.
You're like, does he die? And you're like, ah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's his problem now. So that is the Harvester side mission.
Yeah.
For Deus Ex: Mankind Divided. What about you? You been up with any interesting games?
Well, since it's been 2 weeks, my birthday happened.
Yeah, you're old now.
Yeah, I'm 31.
You were older than me before.
I'm older.
You're a little older.
31. Didn't do anything yet. We're planning to go watch a movie this upcoming weekend.
All right.
And then, which works out again of us pre-recording because we're gonna do it tomorrow, which is today for y'all.
Yeah.
I'm probably already getting out of the theater by the time this, because we were looking at an early time.
Joke of we are now in the past, which
will
be in the future, which for
is the
you
present.
will be the present.
Yeah. The past is the future is the present.
Yep.
You
know what you're gonna watch?
Yeah, probably gonna watch new Captain America.
Okay.
See Harrison Ford as Hulk, Red Hulk. Which we talked about that. We were like, because we were watching Always Sunny recently, and some ads came up, and we were like, yeah, with Thunderbolt Ross's original actor passing away, Harrison Ford probably is the best actor you could have gotten to replace him. And honestly, Harrison Ford playing Thunderbolt Ross kind of just fits Harrison Ford's like aesthetic of just grumpy old man.
Yeah.
But now he's President Ross because he's been,
promoted,
elected.
Sorry, wrong word.
You don't really get promoted to you get elected. In theory.
In theory.
But ex-military because Ross is General Thunderbolt Ross, 5-star general, and then he was Secretary of Defense for a while in the MCU because it was his idea to do the Sokovia Accords, and I've also been watching the new Spider-Man cartoon, which is really good. It's got some and this week the last 2 episodes will be coming out because they've been kind of releasing them in threes. It's really good. I would suggest watching it. Like, it's very lightly tied to MCU because it's like not in the same timeline. It's like it's almost a what if universe. It was originally gonna be, and then they were like, but we want to have Norman Osborn in it, and No Way Home. Sorry, my brain was like, which home? No Way Home. Basically established that Oscorp doesn't exist in the main 616 of the MCU. So they were like, well, it can't be in that timeline anymore, so it's going to be its own thing. And so, but it plays with a lot of the ideas, like the Sokovia Accords happen still. You get a lot of characters that are, like, you get to see a bunch of Marvel characters still, like Iron Man shows up at one point. I'm being very vague, so not to give anything away. Ross shows up, funny enough, since we just talked about him. Doctor Strange shows up, Daredevil shows up, and we get a really cool sequence with him. And it's Charlie Cox Daredevil, so it's Netflix, MCU Daredevil. Which a lot of people like Charlie Cox Daredevil.
No, I was just remembering one of the fucking funniest comic panels of all time.
Yeah.
Where a supervillain grabs like Daredevil by the leg thinking he's Spider-Man, and he's like, and now you'll be blind, Spider-Man. And Spider-Man's off to the side and he's like, oh, poor villain, it's really not your day, is it?
But yeah, no. And so if you're a fan of comic books as well, it has a really good art style. It's very Steve co with what's his name? Another classic artist.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry.
I was just thinking of him not long ago. It's got that style though of classic like comic book look.
Okay.
And so it's really good, and it's has some really good ideas going that I'm really excited to see how they play off. And even if we don't get them in this season, they've already confirmed seasons 2 and 3 are in development. So hey, if we don't get everything this season, obviously me and Harith have been talking about it because you and I have talked about how Harith and I have like solved what Marvel's gonna do with Spider-Man for the next like decade. We've already been like, we know what the next trilogy is. And so like it's really good. I highly suggest it as a Spider-Man. If you're a Spider-Man fan, even if you're not an MCU fan, if you're just a classic Marvel fan, you'll like it. The premise is essentially, the what if of it all is, what if instead of Iron Man training Spider-Man like he does in the MCU, what if Norman was his mentor? Yeah! Oh boy, indeed! Oh boy, indeed! And so it's been very interesting watching. And like, me and Harith are going like, oh, this is about to happen. Like, we'll be like, he'll watch it before me, and then I'll catch up, and then we'll chat in Discord, and I'll be like, so I think this is what's going on, and I think, and then we'll be like, oh, this moment was really cool, and yeah, it's got some, yeah, so it's fun, and it's got Doc Ock, which also another reason why the show has to be a separate timeline, because once again, No Way Home is like, Doc Ock hasn't existed yet, he hasn't fought Doc Ock yet, and until the Doc Ock from Toby's universe comes over. So it wouldn't make sense, once again, for him to have fought a version of Doc Ock before.
Yeah.
So it's just like, okay, so there's things you want. And you know what? I'd rather you tell an interesting story than be forced to tie down into the same universe, right? It's just like, tell the cool story you want to tell. That's better. That's better than forcing your hands, because you're like, well, now I got to switch what villain we want here and there. It's like, no. Tell a cool story. And I think they are. And so that's why I'm, like, enjoying it. I like what they're doing with, like, Lonnie Lincoln, a.k.a. Tombstone, for example, without going in. Once again, I'm not going to go into too much details because the show's still airing. And so, like, I like what they're doing with his story. I like what they're doing with, like, Norman. I like what they're doing with Harry and some of the other characters that we've seen. And they've got even, what's her name from Runaways? One of the Runaway characters.
Oh, shit.
Nico from Runaways. As
That's right, the Runaways exist.
Yeah, the Runaways exist. God, so
I forget about them. The only thing I remember is like the bare bones of their origin story.
Yeah, they're like
our parents were like, we're gonna make immortal babies.
We're like sort of super villains, but also it's morally gray, and aliens are involved.
There's aliens. I think one of them can turn into a dinosaur, but I'm not sure.
But yeah, and so Nico is like the like magic one in the comics. But Nico is in the show, and she's like Peter's friend in at Midtown, and then you got Harry, who he knows because he's being mentored by Norman, rather than Harry going to Midtown. No, Harry goes to private school still. Well, homeschooled. And then Peter has an internship with Oscorp rather than an internship with Stark. And so there's a lot of cool story elements that are going on in the show. So I definitely recommend it. As a Marvel fan, and just as a Spidey fan, because I've been a Spider-Man fan longer than a Marvel fan. I think that's a lot of Marvel fans, though. There's probably a few other, but I think a lot of, in our generation anyways, are Spidey fans who then became Marvel fans. Whether you grew up on the Tobey or the Andrew or the 90s cartoon or the Spectacular Spider-Man, there's always been Spider-Man. Spider-Man is Marvel's Batman and Superman combined. If there's not a Superman or Batman thing going on, there's a Superman or then it's like, if there's not a Spider-Man thing going on, then this is a weird timeline we're in. There's got to be something Spider-Man. Give me pictures of Spider-Man. Is that what you were waiting for?
Yeah, it was like it was like fucking what was that? A mash of fucking Green Goblin and Jameson at once.
But yeah, and then outside of that, as far as gaming, I've been playing Pillars of Eternity for the YouTube channel because Avowed is coming out, or is kind of out, sort of, kind of. Like, it's got the 5-day early access if you got the deluxe edition, which I have been playing. It's a beast of a game, so I have been fighting the like hardware side of things and the software side and trying to get it to run, but when I can get it run, it's a lot of fun. And I'm enjoying it. It's got the Skyrim elements like I was expecting based on like how the game looks. Like I was expecting like this to be Obsidian's version of an Elder Scrolls game because we've got their version of a Fallout game because Obsidian's like, well, if we can't make Fallout games anymore, we're just going to make our own futuristic sci-fi game. And so they made Outer Worlds, which is their version of Fallout, essentially. Except more space travel.
Yep. No space battles, though, which makes it a better game in my book.
And strangely enough, more anti-capitalism than Fallout. Fallout is anti-capitalism.
Yeah.
But Outer Worlds is even more anti-capitalism.
Outer World is more anti-capitalism. Fallout's more like, hey, did you know dangerous shit happens when you go all nuclear?
Did you know that capitalism, like late-stage capitalism, is bad? And Outer Worlds is like, let's look at what late-stage capitalism looks like. Like, they took the Joker approach of late-stage capitalism, whereas Fallout's like, this is where it's led. And,
This is what we got.
And Outer Worlds is like, but we want to explore what it looks like. And how bad it is. Yeah. Forget the aftermath of it. Let's see how bad it is when it's happening. Which creates ridiculous scenarios because you're like, wait, this is what late stage capitalism is? And Outer Worlds is like, yes.
Yep.
You have like 3 major corporations and that's it.
Yep.
And you work for them even if you're not. I'm excited for Outer Worlds 2.
Yeah.
As well. And so, but I need Avowed to come to PlayStation 5 because playing it on PC, like, it's fun, but it's also, like, having to fight that software and stuff. Because I don't have my own tower finished yet. So, like, it's here on the side. Mm-hmm. It's a work in progress.
Yeah. I was thinking about this earlier today. Not in regards to PC building, but in terms of, like, video games in general. And I was like, how many times has a character been shot in the head and got better? The answer in the games that I have personally played
too many.
Is 3 fucking times.
Which is still 3 too many.
Yeah.
But maybe 2 too many. You could probably get away with 1. But still.
Yeah. I was like, it happens in Deus Ex Human Revolution. It happens in Fallout New Vegas.
I was going to say, I knew which one you were going to say.
And it happens in Cyberpunk as well.
All 3 kind of about late-stage capitalism.
So what this has told me
is late-stage capitalism means you can survive bullets to the head. Is that the equivalent of what that? Oh, no. That's not the lesson we're learning?
You need to shoot them in the head twice.
Also, watch out for Matthew... Well, never mind. We don't have to worry about him anymore because he... R.I.P. I was going to say watch out for Matthew Perry, but...
Yeah. He's not around anymore.
Is it too early for that joke?
I don't know.
Is it too late for that joke?
Mm.
At the same time, though, Matthew Perry is a great villain in New Vegas. Like, he's such a hateable but also likable villain. Like you want to shoot him in the head, but also you're like, but also I want to kind of hang out with you at your casino for a little bit before, and then shoot you in the head. Or if you're playing Fallout New Vegas correctly, you sleep with him and then kill him.
Mm. Or if you're like me and care about your personal dignity,
you just shoot him in the head from a distance. And
no, you go in with fucking grenades and air that whole place out.
But you could just walk into the casino because he's just standing right there.
Or better yet,
he's just standing right there.
He is there. Or better yet, you go and you talk to Swank, and you get him to, that is that character's name, Swank. You go and you're like, hey man, I can help you kill your boss.
But we all know the first thing you do when you get into New Vegas, you get rid of that guy who got the lottery. That's just a canon event. It's a canon event. You gotta kill him.
I don't know. It's not.
It is, though. Everybody kills him.
I don't. I'm like, I've got other shit to deal with.
No, you kill him because he's annoying and he's being a... Everybody kills him.
I'm like... He's like, I won the lottery, and I'm like... So going and looking through what that actually means.
Yeah.
I'm like... You fucking did win, pal. You got real lucky.
Which is why most people kill him, because they're like, you shouldn't be like, be that, like...
He is ecstatic to be alive, is what
But also, it's like, it's the case of, haha, I won the... Like, a lot of people read it that way, and so that's why they're like...
Whereas I'm like, looking at the fucking background, I'm like, shit, man, you definitely won.
But yeah, I've been playing Avowed, and so it's a lot of fun. It's. I was thinking it'd be more like Obsidian's version of Skyrim, because like once again we got their version of Fallout. Now let's get their version of Skyrim, and you know, hey, they already got a fantasy setting that people like with the Pillars of Eternity setting. Let's just set it in there, which I like. I do like that. It's separate enough though. You can play just Avowed and be fine, and they even do the old school Elder Scrolls thing of having like certain texts that are highlighted that you can, like, if you need to know lore things, you can see it during the conversation, go, oh, that's what this means, that's what this is, and that way you don't have to like go back and play Pillars of Eternity 1 and 2 to know what's going on in terms of lore. And even then there's like some parts of the lore that like it's separate enough of a story that like it's almost like it's a spin-off in terms of like the major events of Pillars of Eternity 2 and where that ended so far don't affect anything going on in Avowed, and I don't think will, other than one thing, which is that you're a godlike. You have no choice on what race you play in Avowed. Well, race, because godlike can be any
air quote.
Godlike can be any race. It's a case of you're born because the gods touched you, and then not like that.
Sorry.
They gifted you, depending on how you want to look at it. With certain,
I shouldn't be laughing at that.
They gifted you with abilities, and also the the chance to be bullied by everybody in your childhood. Because
children are assholes.
And it's also hard to not be able to identify a godlike. It's kind of all over their face.
Oh, the gods gave you a fucking face tattoo? Is that what happened?
Not a tattoo. Full on like cordyceps, essentially.
Oh shit. Okay. Well, I guess there's not gonna be much hiding that.
Or flames, depending on the type of godlike you are. And usually you can identify what god based on how you look.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, it's that god that turned you into this. Your character in Avowed is interesting in that nobody can tell what god, and therefore you have an unknown god there's an unknown god in the mix.
Card in the deck now.
Yeah, and that's
not good.
That's what crazy things being set in stone after the events of 2 that I'm not going to go into because that's major spoilers for. While the game Pillars of Eternity 2 is kind of old, it might affect Avowed, so I'm not going to talk about it. But let's just say being a godlike is very important to how that ended. So I think that was a conscious choice of them going, hey, we kind of want to tie that in, but we don't want to we don't want to make it the most important thing, but we want to make it a thing.
It is a piece of the story, it is not the story.
Yeah. And so like in the game you're like we've talked about, like what Pillars of Eternity is about. You're a watcher who can see past lives and souls because cycle the wheel, as it's called in the Pillars of Eternity universe. So you go through the wheel whenever you die, and reincarnation is a thing that everybody acknowledges because they know for a fact it exists, and in fact they know the gods for a fact exist. because originally they didn't exist, and then they did exist because of experimentation, which is a major plot point of Pillars of Eternity 1, so I'm not going to give too much away on that either, because that's plot relevant to Pillars of Eternity 1. And since I'm playing it on the channel, I don't want to reveal anything on that end. But it is relevant for that, and that creates relevance for 2, and then slight relevance for Avowed. But you don't play as a Watcher in Avowed. In Avowed, you play as the Emperor's envoy, because the main empire, the Adiran Empire, basically are discovering, hey, there's another soul plague going on.
Oh no.
Because in this universe, since souls are important, because they go through the cycle and repeat. And in fact, you can actually have twins, in the fact of a soul can split in half when it reincarnates and go in 2 different people.
Oh shit.
And then one of the major crises in the first game is the Hollowborn crisis, which is that certain souls, or certain people being born, are just Hollowborn, which means they are not born with souls.
Oh shit.
Which creates problems. And so, but yeah, and so like that's one soul plague that happened, and so that's not important now, because in Pillars of Eternity 1 you solve that problem mostly. There's references that it still might be happening, but not as badly as it was, because Avowed did have like text when I was playing. It had like on the loading screen, it was like they used the other Wadon's Legacy, which is the other name for the Hollowborn crisis, because they think it happened after a certain war, and they're like, this caused it. But anyways, Avowed, however, you play as the Emperor's envoy, and you were basically raised by the Emperor and taken in, and so the Emperor's like, hey, I need you to look into this plague that's going on one of our like colonies, because essentially the Adiran Empire is really big, and it like controls by force a lot of colonies, and it's arguable that Adirans are lawful evil, depending on like person.
Okay.
But the Empire itself could be considered that, because the god they specifically choose to worship is lawful evil. And so like you go to the Living Lands, which is not a new setting in terms of like existing. It's existed in the world of Aora, which is the name of the setting. But we've never seen it in the games.
Okay.
So
it's a place that it's on the map, but you never visit.
Yeah, like we've talked about it in each game, but we've never gone there. Which each game has done that. Each game has been like, we're going to go to this section of the map. You're going to explore this little continent. Cool. And then Pillars of Eternity 2 is like, all right, let's go to the Deadfire Archipelagos, which is why it's called Pillars of Eternity 2 Deadfire. So you go to the Deadfire Archipelago, and you go there, and now you're in the Living Lands, which is kind of like this wild, untamed section of the universe, of the world. But it's kind of like smugglers and stuff like that. And the Adirans are like, we're bringing order to it at the same time. But it's like everybody who is from there is like, we don't want that. We're kind of cool with how things were. And so, but you're sent as an envoy to kind of look into things and see what's going on with this plague, and other stuff is going on. You got voices in your head, and soul stuff happens, and I'm not going to go too much into detail, because once again, the game is not full, like, it's in advanced access is what it's called, because it's just you paid to get 5 days early. So it's in that stage. It's not fully out, so I don't want to spoil too much. But as far as gameplay, I like it. It's Skyrim meets Mass Effect is what I would say. Okay. It's like Skyrim in the terms of like open world RPG, real-time combat. But then it's got like some Mass Effect elements where like I have a party, but also like I can't control really like their actions fully. I can do like their special moves and tell them, hey, do this special move. And in fact, there's even puzzles in the map where you'll run into like thorn bushes, and you can go, hey, use your fire thing to destroy that so we can get through here. But there's other ways to do that. Like I could pull out a spell book and do the same thing, but I'm not really making my character a spellcaster. They're a ranger is what I'm going for, because it's fighter, ranger, wizard are the main 3 classes. And you can, much like Skyrim, you can kind of mix and match like what you want to be. You could be a fighter ranger or whatever. You could be which is just a ranger. You could be a ranger wizard, a fighter wizard, battle mage essentially. And so that's Skyrim-y, I think. That's very Elder Scrolls, is like no real class system.
Yeah, you got the skills that you want.
Whereas Mass Effect would be more you have a class, you build based on that class. But the combat is where a lot of that comes in that you have like control wheel of telling your companions to do certain abilities. You can actually like control your special abilities that way, but you can also do them in real time. Like there's little button hotkeys to do them. Like one of my ranger ones, I can like create like little like the little like trap. The like in D&D, it's
is it basically like you put arrows in the ground if they walk over?
No, I just cast a spell and it creates like a little trap for them, for them to be stuck in. It's like a vine thing. Yeah, very D&D. So you just cast it and it just.
Oh, Hail of Thorns. That's what.
Almost like that, except the one where it's on the ground. There's like one that's like. Y'all know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Anyways, so you can do that, and then like I can do that from a hotkey in the middle of combat while I'm shooting arrows, or I can be like, okay, this is too much. Everything's going on too fast. Let me do it in the wheel, and the game will pause a little bit as you can decide and give you a little bit more time to like strategize, which I really appreciate that as an option. I fought some really hard fights today actually, and I was like, am I gonna live? Like my companion that I have, Kai, who's voiced by Garrus's voice actor from Mass Effect, probably why I got Mass Effect on the brain of as a connection. He's another scaly being. He's a shark person with a blunderbuss. Another scaly creature. You cannot get away from scaly creatures, can you? But yeah, I like him. He's a fun character, and like he kept dying in the combat, which you can res, like they don't die, they like take a knee and they're stuck until you like can res them or you win the fight. Or I have like a god-like ability that lets me cast them like just freely pick them up.
Get up.
Yeah, get up. And so like he went down like 3 times during that fight, and I was just like, gah! And this was like for a bounty, and there were like 3 bears and like 5 different 5 bandits, and I'm like,
who did this
and so, but yeah, so that's a taste of the combat, and it's fun, and the narrative is interesting. I like I like what's going on. I like the side quests, and so I'm having fun with it, even though I'm having technical issues with it. I hope it will get a PlayStation release. We haven't heard anything yet, but so far, Microsoft, because Obsidian is now owned by Microsoft, which is why it's an Xbox and PC exclusive right now. Microsoft has been pretty good at like eventually getting their stuff to PS5 and going, hey, it's just exclusive for now. It'll get there. Same thing with PlayStation. Sony's also been pretty good at going, it's a PlayStation exclusive, but we'll eventually get it to PC. At the very least, PC. Maybe not Xbox, but PC. The game is pretty heavy though. It's a 12 gigabytes of RAM, which is why I'm probably struggling on my computer, because while my computer's old, it's not bad, but it's old, and it can handle a lot. It can handle like Baldur's Gate 3 and other stuff okay. It's only an 8 gig RAM computer, so the fact that I'm chugging Avowed, and it's not, I have it on the low settings and everything, and so it's fine. Like, it just doesn't look as pretty as it could. Like, it could be really pretty looking if I had it, like, full. But it's just not as pretty looking. But it's also not... Like, it's running fine. Like, it'll start off that way, and then once you kind of sit there for a few minutes, then it'll be like, okay, we can play. Yep. Like, I'll be walking around for a little bit, and it'll kind of, like, stutter, but then eventually it'll be like, okay, let's go. And so it's a fun game. I like it. I wish it was on PlayStation, so then like we can like I could show you better, and we could have fun with it. But because I feel we've talked about this when we talked Pillars back when I was playing it, before I was playing it for the channel, when I was just playing it for myself. I feel like you'd like the setting.
Mm.
It's very Pathfinder D&D esque, and it's fantasy setting with guns, which is like a setting that's very Seth. I'm waiting. I'm a ranger, and I'm waiting to get a second pistol because I have a pistol so far. Because you can get one within like maybe the first 3 hours. You can find one.
You
Like
and
just
I,
find one.
you and I were talking about it earlier, and I'm like, I wonder if you're gonna have to reload it or not.
Yeah, because there is no ammunition thing, so that's nice. But it's a case of like you can dual wield weapons because I was watching a video. I was watching regulation gameplay, which is Jeff and Gavin from Achievement Hunters, like new channel that they've made with some other people that they were working with before Rooster Teeth and Achievement Hunter went. Pfft. Although Rooster Teeth's back because Bernie bought it, so we'll see how that goes. I'm excited about that. But regulation gameplay is like them goofing off, and so like all 6 members of regulation gameplay made a character together, and then they started playing it, and they're dual wielding daggers on like one equipment loadout, but you can have 2 loadouts, so you can quick switch between loadouts.
I see.
So for me, bow and arrow is one loadout that I have, and then for my other loadout, sword and shield, and their second loadout is shield and fist. And they just punch people all the time.
Like much like you've punched the table just now.
But what's really funny is like how far you can send people flying.
Is it like a damn? That was pretty hard.
Yeah, because like you remember, the Zorops in Pillars, so like they're like lizard, like they're basically lizard folk. And so like the Zorops are the common enemy in the game, and so like they sent a Zorop going, and they went. And they were like, "Oh, you sent that flying," and I'm just like, "Oh, that's hilarious." And because like it's a meme character they made, like they made their godlike character look so ugly on purpose. They got like purple beard and white hair and gold shining eyes, and I'm just like, and then like their jaw is like inside their to the point that you can see their neck completely. And I'm just like, the fun things you can do in this game, and so I'm like, because that's also the fun part about RPGs. It's just
I think if
how ugly of a character can you make?
I think if I ever get the chance to play the game, I think for loadout I'll probably take like a pistol and a sword for the first one.
You'll have to find a pistol. Like it's like I said, it's like within the first 3 hours you can find one. I'm hoping I can buy the other one. I haven't found a shop that has it. But if I do get another one, then I'll start dual wielding. But for now, I'm going to stick with my bow and arrow and then sword and shield as my backup. If anything gets too close. Thankfully, I don't have to worry about that for the most part because Kai is while he blunderbusses, he has a sword in the other hand. So he's blunderbusting sworded. And I'm like, okay, you're my melee guy. You're my melee guy. I got you. And so, yeah, it's a fun game. I'm like 4 hours in. And so much to do in that game. All right. I have some news things. We'll get into those real quick, and then we'll get into the main topic. Yeah. I was kind of skimming. I was cutting some stuff because there was a lot of news, and then there's some other news I'm like. So, Star Wars Celebration. That's. I'm trying to remember if that's already happened or happening. I know it's coming up really soon. April. Okay. April 18th to 20th. So, in the next couple months. We now have a new name that's going to be there. Oscar Isaac, a.k.a. Poe.
All right.
Which is interesting. And so people are wondering, Star Wars Newsnet specifically, is wondering, are we going to get a sequel trilogy reunion? Because Daisy Ridley we know is going to be there. Because she's obviously promoting the new Jedi Order film that's still in early development. Like, there's a new script that's being made, as we talked about. But obviously she'll be there to help promote some of that. And only person we're really missing out of the main trio is John Boyega. You think we're gonna get? You think we're gonna get? I mean, we're in speculation, but like this is fun speculation.
We might not.
I think it'd be nice to see them together. I wonder if they're not doing that. Why is he there? Unless he's going to be in the new Jedi Order film. But I would expect John Boyega Finn to be there before Poe, because we know Finn has the Force, even though the movie never ever actually fully says it. We know, like, it's basically canon. I think it's been canonized in other stuff, and then speculated on, obviously, in the Lego stuff. That's not canon, but like they're basically like, yeah, he's got the Force. So as far as canon is concerned, I think yes. And so, if anything, we'd see Finn before we see Poe in a new Jedi Order film.
We'll see.
But
Although I do think narratively it makes more sense since Poe has been with
he's more Resistance, and
no, not Poe. Fuck. Finn.
yeah,
Finn has been with
Rey the longest.
Rey the longest, yeah.
Yeah, that's the weird part about that trio's dynamic. I'll say, is that Poe and Rey's dynamic isn't as strong as Finn and Poe's. Whereas normally your trio of main characters in the Star Wars trilogy are usually equally connected.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would say Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Padme are equally connected, and same with like Luke, Han, and Leia. You know, your main trio.
Yeah.
And so it is weird that your main trio for the sequel trilogy isn't as connected. Finn is kind of the center point for both. It makes for an interesting dynamic. It's different, but it's just it's weird when you consider how Star Wars usually operates. Going into TV, Young Jedi Adventure Season 2 is going to potentially wrap up in March. We're getting the final batch of episodes, which means we'll finally get to review it by then. We'll get to watch and review it then. Because I actually haven't watched Season 2 yet. But I'm excited because there's a lot. I mean, I'm excited to see the new dynamics of where they take our pirate friend. Because Season 1 kind of ended with maybe he gets a more heroic arc in Season 2. Because he kind of is questioning himself while also doubling down at the same time.
Yep.
He's like he's in a weird position. And then, of course, there's more tie-ins to the High Republic novels. Because we're getting more of that. As well as like we have new characters involved, and so I'm interested to see what happens with that. Sanctuary, the new Bad Batch novel, has a cover,
Alright.
and we also got a little bit of a synopsis. Basically, we know that it's gonna be set essentially between seasons 2 and 3, I think.
Okay.
Because it's going to be set on their like paradise planet
Pabu.
on Pabu, yeah. And so, I'll read the synopsis. Hunter, Wrecker, Tech, and Omega gamble on a mission to help rebuild Pabu in this thrilling adventure for the Bad Batch. A good soldier knows that life is all about change, whether it's on or off the battlefield. Surviving living means adaptation. Hunter is well acquainted with this lesson. He's on the run from the Empire. Echo's off on a mission with Captain Rex, and Crosshair is still Crosshair, but amidst all the change, Hunter still has Tech, Wrecker, and Omega. And it seems that his small family might have finally found a safe place to land, far from the increasingly vigilant eyes of the Empire, Pabu. But this potential new island home is in desperate need of resources if there is any hope for the fledgling community to recover from a devastating sea wave. That's where Fee Genoa, self-proclaimed liberator of treasures, comes in. With a couple of jobs she swears will get them the funds they need. Despite Hunter's concern with Fee's precarious plans, the rest of the crew is fine following her lead. Things go wrong almost immediately as Fee's droid blows the crew's cover at a high-stakes auction, and they barely make it out with the relic they'd been paid to acquire. Hunter insists they finish their first mission and deliver the relic before taking on more work, but Fee and the others push forward with a second job, ferrying a couple on the run, one of whom is due to give birth at any moment. Hunter worries what they're risking, especially when their mysterious new passengers cling to lies and secrets that trace back to an Imperial Security Bureau officer hot on their trail. As Hunter tries to get the crew back on a stable, safe path far, far away from anything to do with the Empire's watchdogs. Their overlapping missions only invite more danger and chaos. On the verge of failing both their desperate passengers and their community on Pabu, the Batch must remember that the only way to succeed, they succeed, the only way they survive to fight another day is by trusting each other. So this is gonna be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
We're kind of in a Bad Batch renaissance. Because we got this book, and then we got the comic that's coming out right now.
Mm-hmm.
This one set during the Bad Batch show, and then the comic set during the Clone Wars. We're getting a lot of, like, Bad Batch is on, they're back with the resurgence, man. And I'm excited, actually. Like, it's weird to think about that. It's like, we finished Bad Batch and we're like, okay, we got the story we wanted. But also now we're getting more Bad Batch and I'm like, you know what? I'm not mad we're getting more Bad Batch. In fact, I'm excited, which is weird because if you told me more Clone Wars, I'd be like, no. If you told me more Bad Batch, I'm like, hell yeah. It's kind of where we're at. And that synopsis is very interesting. I'm excited about what's going to happen there.
Hunter, can we please stop pissing off the people that want to find us?
And of course, a lot of fans are excited of the potential for some of the connections that we'll get during the book, and people are hoping that we'll get some more tech and fee stuff, because the fans are big fans of that ship. And, you know, it's the only chance we'll get considering what happens to Trek, but...
Yep.
Yeah.
Everyone, he's alive. Me. Nah, that motherfucker's dead.
But we didn't see a body! We can dream! We can dream! Let the dream stay alive. But yeah. But we got a really badass
Oh, yeah.
cover for it, and... I'm excited. Lamar hasn't done a novel yet. He's done some short story work. We talked about that when it was announced. So I'm excited to see what he does with a full book. Because Star Wars books love to pull their authors from their short story collections and then make them prove their worth. Jumping into manga territory, Viz Media, who does all the manga for Star Wars stuff, is releasing a new manga soon. This one is set during the sequel trilogy era, which I think we need a little bit more of that, honestly. We don't have a lot filling that gaps. Specifically set after the events of The Last Jedi. And it, written by Kenny Ruiz, the story takes place after the events of The Last Jedi and follows a young scavenger named Nyoka. They dream of becoming a Jedi and stumble upon a lightsaber while exploring the ruins of a ship from the High Republic, so we're going to get some High Republic ties. From there, their life is turned upside down as they soon learn that others are also after the lightsaber. They'll have to learn how to wield it while on the run. And so also the synopsis goes out of their way to point out that Nyoka idolizes Luke Skywalker. So Star Wars Newsnet is like, presumably they're going to learn about Luke dying during the events of Last Jedi, since that's like a week ago or whatever, depending on how recent after Last Jedi this is going to take place. And this is I think it's the perfect time to set a sequel trilogy story, because it's the only time you can, because Last Jedi takes place literally immediately after Force Awakens, which is weird for Star Wars, once again, because Star Wars is like, usually we got like a year or two in gaps. No, this one's like, boom, watch the next movie immediately. And then Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker have a year. So this is kind of where you can fill in that gap of time, right? And so I think we need more stories taking place during this time. So yeah, and so I'm excited because I think more manga is fun, original stories especially. We have a really cool cover piece for that. Yeah. It gives me very much like 90s anime, Dragon Ball-esque look. Especially there's like resistance member that's like running from from the First Order troopers, and he's like, ah, and he's like, it's very, very like, looks like something that specifically is very Dragon Ball vibes, like OG Dragon Ball vibes to me, not Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball. Um, and then like the villain looks cool, so like. Let me see if there's a date on it. It's called Star Wars Path of the Lightsabers, what it's going to be called. We do not have a release date yet. But the Star Wars News speculates we'll learn in Star Wars Celebration, which makes sense. It's coming pretty soon. I mean, soon enough that we'll get a lot more news then. We'll find out what new books are coming out. We'll find out what new comics and manga. But that's news.
Yeah.
Main topic time.
Okay, which one do we start with?
We'll go High Republic. We'll go chronological as we usually do.
Okay.
So we're going to talk about High Republic Adventures, Echoes of Fear.
The Research Boys.
The Research Boys! Amadeo and Wreath. And, I like it, and it really ties into everything we've been getting with the Adventures comics for a lot of stuff. Not the mainline Adventures comics, but like the mini-series ones.
Yeah.
Because all the mini-series ones have been kind of setting up the Echo Stones and kind of like being like, hey, here's some information about the Echo Stones that you should know. And like we've kind of known what they're about, but also not what they are really at the same time. Like we get like it's very rumors and speculation and legends. And we kind of continue with that in the Echoes of Fear for the first half. Like, the first two issues are very, like, here's, like, an old story about the Echo Stones.
Here's two.
Yeah.
The first of which is, like, here's fucking Darth Ravi the Bold and all the bullshit that he caused.
Yeah, which Darth Ravi was mentioned in the previous Echoes comic that we had for Adventures. Echo Stone comic, which, boy, oh boy, was he an angry boy.
Oh, he's so angry.
He angry. He had to solve puzzles to get to the stone, only for it to be too powerful for him. Because he wasn't pure of heart, or intention, I guess.
Yeah.
And so, like, and so they're like, yeah, but that's just a legend, and, you know, doesn't help us, especially because it was destroyed in the process, like the Echo Stone.
Yeah. Admittedly, though, fucking sick ass artwork on that one.
Yeah. Second issue, it's like, all right, here's something a little more recent-ish.
The return of Barnabas Vim.
Yeah.
And his disappearance.
Yeah. So we learn, you know, we learn more because in the last one with Barnabas, we learned that it's like, all right, I got to find these other ones and get rid of them. I need to figure out where they come from and like bring them there, because they aren't intentionally bad, but I know
they have a passive effect.
Yeah, like if you overuse them, you can.
Yeah, which is what was going on with that aquatic planet.
Mm-hmm. And he learns that an old friend of his has one.
Mm-hmm.
So decides, you know what, I gotta get that one back. And so they get there, and he's like, man, it's draining you to use that, huh? And he's like, yeah, but I can't give it up yet till I help this civilization real quick. I promised them.
Yep.
And then he's like, okay, well, what'd you promise them? We're basically gonna make a seawall using the Force.
Yep.
Out of the planet's surface. And Barnabas is like, you can't do that with the Force.
And he's like, watch me.
You can with the Echo Stone, but I can't do it by myself, because it would kill me if I do it by myself.
Yep.
And Barnabas is like, fine.
Fine. Okay. Deal.
But I'm going to take the stone after. He's like, yep.
Perfectly fine. I agree to these terms.
Because I know you've got good intentions, is basically what his friend's like. He's like, I know you're a good person. I know you mean well. And so they do it, and it knocks his friend out still. Yep. Because that's how much he's been using the stone.
Yep.
Because he's been going, like, planet hopping, doing, like, Jesus miracles, essentially.
Basically.
Basically going, I'm a Jedi who's actually going out helping people. Cool. But I'm also using a magic stone that drains me in the process. Not as cool.
That's also not public information, except for
they know the
they
stone.
know the stone exists. They don't know what the cost is.
Yeah, and they know he's using it to make these miracles happen, but they don't know. Yeah, they don't know it's draining him, and it's just like not as cool. The Jesus miracle's cool. The dying part not as cool.
Yeah.
And so thankfully his friend survives, and he's like, "All right, I'll tell you where I think these stones come from, because I've learned about where they come from, but I've never been there. You got to promise me though, you don't tell anybody else." Which Barnabas lied, I guess.
Yeah.
Because he told his apprentice. He told his apprentice because he told her to follow him if he. Well, no, I guess he didn't tell her because she goes looking for him and still doesn't find him.
He's like, "Oh, the last."
So I guess he did keep the promise.
Yeah. He's like, "Oh, the last place I was on was Varovia."
Because the third comic is a follow-up to that, and even in that comic, they're like, "Yeah, Barnabas' apprentice went looking, but she never learned, and in fact, she creates her own legacy as a really cool Jedi that we don't get the story for, by the way. I'm excited to learn what she does in the future."
Meanwhile, Barnabas just fucking disappeared, and no one ever saw him again.
And so, second comic, they like, he like basically goes to Planet X because that.
Yeah. I was like,
we saw the pink clouds,
and we're like, "Yep, that's Planet X."
We saw the clouds that were covering the surface and making it to where you can't communicate, and we're like, "Oh, it's Planet X. It's Planet X," which makes sense because that then is the reason why they're tied to the Nameless. But also, like, once again, the idea is that we're learning is that the Nameless aren't like. The control of the Nameless was not the reason that the stones exist, but that's become more of a byproduct. Yeah. And that's kind of Reith and Amadeo's, like, initial, like, premise. And they're right. I think they are right. It's just we haven't learned the truth of these stones yet.
Yeah.
Because even by the end of this comic, we don't.
Like, we know that the stones can empower you to do incredible things with the Force.
In fact, they never learn that it's Planet X.
Yeah, they don't know about Planet X because
even though we know where Planet X is now, like we know where the Nameless come from, we know where Planet X is. Like this is information that this era of. No, they don't.
They don't because everything's in the goddamn black file.
Because that was Phase 2.
Yeah.
Yoda, release the files.
And Yoda's like, "But no."
But Yoda, we need him.
Like, I don't know. Have you talked to Aslan recently?
Yeah, but he's a madman.
Yeah, he's fucking crazy.
He's crazy. He's right, but he's crazy. He also goes too far.
Yeah.
And so the third comic is a follow-up to that where they basically are like, okay, well, that's where that story ends, and that still seems like a legend because that doesn't tell us what happened to Barnabas or where to go next.
And they're like, all right, Pathfinder
but then that's when
is the next closest one.
That's when Comac shows up and is like, oh, actually, hey, I have a story about some people that were like, that went to look before us, and here, I know the name of a Jedi that was involved, and Reed's like, wait, I have a holocron for that. Because they basically have been watching holocron retellings of each of these stories. And so the third holocron basically tells of like this group that went to like the last known location of Barnabas, which was this like outer wild space, outer rim planet that was basically recovering from a civil war that was caused by one of the rods.
Welcome to Varovia.
Which rod was it? I forgot now.
I think it's
the Rod of Seasons. It's the Rod of
either Ages or Seasons.
I think Ages. It is Ages. It's the Rod of Ages. And so these Jedi that went there show up. I like the Jedi in that one. Although when I was reading it, the Master's voice comes off as very that very old Jedi from Clone Wars is how I was like the voice I had. The one that's in the High Republic era too. He's in the High Republic era. because he went undercover in High Republic Adventures for Phase 2 as a pirate. But yeah, I had his voice in my head when I was reading it. I was like, and so I really like them, and so they basically go down there and they're like, hey, we're not here to reignite the war. We're gonna get the rod and destroy it or move it or whatever. Yeah. And one of the leaders is like, great, that's actually gonna be really helpful for us. Turns out he's a lying liar, because both factions turn on the Jedi immediately once they open the secret door, puzzle door that the rod is hidden behind, which is a similar puzzle door to the one Darth Ravi had to deal with, which is why the Darth Ravi story is relevant.
The Master is also like, yeah, Barnabas, even if he was here, he couldn't have got in on his own.
Yeah, because it took 2 Jedi to open it. Which is very Jedi of a thing to make happen, because the Sith could never work together like that, which is why Darth Ravi struggled a lot, because the Sith ain't gonna work together to that degree, especially for a powerful artifact. They will turn on each other real quick. Mm. And so, they open it, and they find it, and they're like, oh, it's booby-trapped, by the way.
Yeah.
And that's when, like, the armies are showing up, and they're like, and they're with the Pathfinders for that, and one of them says their name in third person a lot, when they're talking, and I like Gozo. I like Gozo.
Gozo does not like this place. Gozo thinks we should leave.
Gozo has a bad feeling about this.
Gozo is right.
Yeah. And so, no, as soon as they were talking to that leader, I was like, you sneaky. Like, I knew from the moment, I knew from the jump, I'm like, he's gonna turn on y'all. He's gotta turn on y'all. But also, that's the type of story that we were in. Like, it was...
The other thing is, like, at the time, I was like, this Master is like, oh, yes, but should we not? Or shouldn't we? I was like...
He was like, yeah, should we not mess with the rod? And it's like, no, we need to get rid of it, because it's causing a problem, obviously.
He's got the should or should we not Master asking questions student thing. I'm like, motherfucker, I don't...
Yeah, and so...
Where I was more irritated by that, to the point of where I'm like, I don't care.
But yeah, the Master ends up deciding, hey, the useful thing is to just swing at this rod and hopefully destroy it. And with the booby traps. And so the booby traps go off, and they run out, and it's assumed the rod is destroyed. Although we learned that the Jedi Master kind of knew the truth and was like, nah, I just buried that thing, and we just let them think it's gone.
Yep.
The power of,
it can't tempt you if it's not available.
And if you don't think it exists.
Yep.
The power of belief.
Strange thing.
Yeah. Strangely, the power of belief is enough to ward off force magic corruption. It's enough to just believe, you know what? I am powerful enough to not deal with that corruption. Because that corruption doesn't exist. And the corruption's like, but I do. And you're just like, no, you don't. And then you're not corrupted. And then you're not corrupted. It's also like we learn in the 4th comic, because they finally Reith, Comac, and Amadeo are like, okay, we know where it's at. Let's go get the Rod of Sea.
Let's go
grab the Rod of Ages. And so we get to the point of we learn that it's like 5 levels down. Like, it's down there. They buried that thing.
Yeah. They go get to Barovia, and the current leader is like, hi, welcome to unified Barovia.
Also, like, the Jedi, like, because when they got there, they were like, how are they going to receive Jedi? Are they going to be mad because of what happened last time? And they're like, no. We basically see you as heroes. You solved all of our problems. We've had unlimited peace ever since you guys left.
And then they're like, so about that. We want to go dig up the thing that caused that really big civil war. And the leader is like, are you sure you want to do that?
They're like, hey, if it's still there, we're going to take it away. If anything, we're just going to prove that it is destroyed.
Yep.
And he's like, you know what, that's fair. Yeah, sure.
Go ahead.
Although, the place you're going is a wasteland, because, like, nobody has stepped foot near where that...
Good luck getting there.
Yeah, like, nobody's gone there since it got buried.
Yeah, they're like, by the way, that place is mega cursed, so...
Yeah. Which it's not cursed, but they do see the area, and they're like, well, he wasn't lying. Nobody did come here.
Yeah.
Which
The reason why they go there is they believe that that area is cursed.
yeah, which is very interesting because that proves that they really did think, hey, it was destroyed, because you would think like maybe somebody was like, oh no, I believe it's not destroyed, and but we do learn that somebody did go through the dungeon before them.
Yeah.
And we learn who it is too. It's a droid.
Mm-hmm.
Because they saved that droid incidentally. Which funniest line at the end of that comic, but first I go through the mega dungeon.
Yeah.
It's basically a D&D mega dungeon.
I saw that shit on the
on the panel when they're showing the full map.
I'm like, that's a fucking.
It's a D&D mega dungeon.
D&D dungeon right there.
And so like there's even like puzzles and tests that like a D&D DM would make you go through. It's like, we're gonna test your spirit.
Yeah, they got Comac to fucking do a timed puzzle
where they have to hold off the horde, while he has to do a concentration spell so he can open the puzzle. And then, which is also very MMO-esque, and also like.
Meanwhile.
And then the next puzzle is like a puzzle of faith, of like faith and self, I guess, because that's one Wreath takes, which I like, and it's a mirror. Because of course it is.
Yeah. Amadeo kind of like figures out the weak points for a lot of the enemies that they're in there.
Yeah, I did like Wreath taking the puzzle of the fate, the self-worth puzzle. I am curious because the whole point is that he rejects any of the futures, because like the future's always in motion, sort of thing, is what he ends up doing. But we do see multiple different types of futures that could happen, and I'm curious which, if any, are going to happen. Because we see one where he kills Aslan. We see one where he becomes a member of the council. Which I feel like Wreath's journey would, if he survives the High Republic. Because because this is the High Republic, I have to preface that with, if he survives the High Republic. Unfortunately, I do have to preface it with that. I feel like it's fitting for his journey to end with him on the council.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised.
I feel like that's just Wreath's natural progression.
Also, he still has Solandra's shield. That's not lost.
Yeah, because we see him use it, and he Captain America's it to help Amadeo. And then what else? What else was in that future vision? There was like a couple other things. Oh, there was one where Amadeo dies.
Yeah.
My mind, I mentally blocked that one. Aslan dying, fine. Amadeo, however, I'm like, which maybe all of them happen. Maybe he kills Aslan because Aslan kills Amadeo. Because we know Aslan's gonna get up to some shenanigans. Because we know that because of the Star Wars mainline comic. Because that secret weapon still hasn't been put into play.
We'll see.
It can kill anything, but then it kills a bunch of people in the process weapon. We still haven't seen that in use. Charles Soule, I swear to God. Probably saving it for the adult novel. But yeah, so they find after they get to the puzzles, they almost fail the last puzzle, which is like Indiana Jones snakes that start to grab them as they're trying to get to the rod.
'Cause fuck you, snakes.
Yeah. And then Wreath's like, nah, I'm gonna use the rod's right there. I'm just gonna use the force of it because it's already, I can feel it within me already. I'm just gonna use all that extra force to cast away these things.
Yep.
Like I've already got the boost. I'm within vicinity of the boost.
Wreath basically being like, I'm not turning back now. After all this shit we had to do to get this damn thing.
And so like they save a droid who was like messed up by the snakes because he made it to the end. He was holding the rod, and the droid was like, help me. And so they take his head. And they
don't cut it off. It's just the only part that can be taken.
Yeah. So they take his head and bring him back on the ship. And they have the Rod of Ages now, and so they're like, well, I guess we don't need to find the home planet of the rest of these because we've got this now.
Mhm.
And I'm just like, no, you still need to find. Like, I read it, I'm just like, no, I think. Like, it reads as hopeful, and I'm just like, no, I think you still need to find. I think you still need to find Planet X. I think you still need to find Planet X. But we'll see,
We'll see.
because the premise is that now that they've got the rod, they can now undo Markion's control with his rod of the nameless,
Hopefully.
and as well as hopefully.
No, hopefully that's how it works.
Well, we know it is how that works. Because phase 2, we saw that's how that works. The rods kind of.
Oh yeah, right. They negate each other.
Yeah. So we have seen that. We know that part does work. The hopefully comes in with the blight going on.
Hopefully it'll help with the blight.
We'll see though, because it's sort of man-made, sort of not. So we'll see. But yeah, that's the High Republic Adventures Echoes of Fear.
Mhm.
Pretty good comic.
Yep.
8 out of 10. Strong, but could be stronger. It's another nice little collection of short stories that are put together by the larger narrative. For me.
Yeah. I'll go with an 8 out of 10. I was like, I don't want to give it a 9.
No, it's not.
Like,
I don't think it's that good.
And I was like, but I don't want to give it a 7 because
it's not average either.
Yeah.
Like, I saved 7 for like, hey, you gave us the bare minimum. You gave us a good bare minimum. Like, it's not bad, but it's like you're almost at a failing grade. You gotta. It's like talking to a student. You gotta shape up a little bit. You're doing fine. You gotta see, but I know you can do better. Is essentially what happens if I give something a 7. It's like, I know you can do better. An 8, it's like, okay, you can do even better, but this is good. You want to lead on the next one? With,
Oh boy, alright.
So, Battle of Jakku, baby!
Battle of Jakku.
Maxi series, because it was like 3 mini-series that they put into like a mega arc. And it
Uh.
made me more upset that you can't play Star Wars Uprising. Because Adelhard and Brog are like the main antagonists of
I
it.
see.
And because the game existed first.
Okay.
And it was like a mobile game that it was very Diablo-esque in gameplay. So it took place during the part of the arc where he has the iron blockade going on.
Oh, okay.
And you play as they reference actually your character from that game. They reference the smuggler that's in the blockade. They're like, oh yeah, we got this. There's a smuggler that was leading an uprising from inside the blockade. That's your character, buddy. But then it was an online game, and it was a mobile online game, and then they shut it down.
I see.
So unplayable.
I'll say this: Adelhard is the embodiment.
Adelhard, Adelhard, either way.
Is the embodiment of you fucked up. You should have killed me. Because my God,
That man has like 3 death sentences and comes back.
yeah. Because everyone's like, there's no way he could survive that.
Well, I think in the case of like the one that makes him go crazy, because the man does go crazy. The one that makes him go crazy, I think that was a purposeful. Hey, we're not killing him. We're silently getting him off the ship. That was a purposeful. Hey, we're not gonna kill you because we're gonna come back and get rid of this witch.
And Adelhard also breaks one of the rules that I live by, which is don't fuck your teammates.
Especially if you aren't really in a true alliance with them.
Yeah.
Like if he slept with the enemy who was also in a very shaky alliance with him. I did like overall. I did like this comic. I like the continuing from the mainline Star Wars narrative, Star Wars comic narrative, and just going from there. And a lot of tie-ins to it too. Like we get Valence back. Once again, we get a 5th perspective of the Battle of Jakku. There are we're gonna go through this eventually. You haven't gotten to it yet. There are so many perspectives to this battle that we have gotten in canon. There's like the aftermath, which was our original perspective. Then we got Lost Stars as well from Claudia Gray, which has a perspective. Then we got the Battlefront 2 campaign, which has a perspective. I'm trying to think what else.
This is ridiculous.
We have this now, for sure. That's a fourth perspective. We might just only be at 4, but still. A lot of perspectives going on here of this battle. And this is like, Jakku is the starting place in Force Awakens, so it explains where all those Star Destroyers and stuff came from, is from that battle. Bro, it also ties in heavily to Aftermath trilogy. If this is a case of, if you are a fan of a lot of the post Return of the Jedi stuff, it's a good read. I think I'm curious on your perspective of this comic as somebody who doesn't know a lot of these things going in. Do you think it works as a standalone?
I think it absolutely does.
Okay, because there's a lot of things they're throwing at you at the same time. Because they're bringing in Gallus Rex from the Aftermath trilogy as a side villain, even though in the Aftermath trilogy he is the villain. They have Rey Sloane in it, which is also Aftermath related, but also entirety of new canon related, because she's somebody we literally watch her career in the new canon. We see her from cadet to Grand Admiral. And so I feel like I don't know how strong those parts of the narrative work without the context.
It is interesting to see, but I'm also I don't give a damn.
Those are parts of the narrative that you're like,
I know why they're here.
You can almost cut them.
Yeah.
From your perspective.
And it would be fine.
The only reason that they're important is to understand that Adelhard's such an outlier.
They're who the fuck?
It also ties into Shattered Empire, which is another comic. Because Shattered Empire is literally right after Return of the Jedi. It literally starts with the Ewok celebration forward. And we see some early Luke and Leia stuff, and they mention some stuff from that. They mentioned the Palpatine's plan of what he did, Operation Cinder, which we've talked about, because it's also in Battlefront 2 campaign. But if
I can't have it, no one can have it.
Which is also what Gallus Rex is continuing the operation of, because the Battle of Jakku was also part of that plan, which is basically wipe out all sides in one big battle, which is what the Battle of Jakku really is.
Yeah,
the battle
is. Whoever wins this, it's the last big battle,
and
whoever wins this
controls the fate of the galaxy.
Yeah.
And 2/3 of the factions that are there are just wanting to wipe out everyone. The Imperial faction, Gallus Rex's specifically, wants to just annihilate everybody. It's because basically Palpatine and Gallus Rex is a immediate disciple of Palpatine. Palpatine's whole thing is, if I die, you don't deserve my empire.
Yeah.
And so, and then of course he has the contingencies of the First Order, which are set up as well, because we get Brendel Hux, and we see a younger Hux from Force Awakens next to him, which is also tied into Aftermath. We're gonna read Aftermath eventually. I like them. They're a good trilogy in my opinion. I know they're divisive for some fans. I like the Aftermath trilogy a lot. And so I think tying this comic into that, I like it as a fan. I think it's narratively fun, but also I'm this is a lot of stuff to be throwing at somebody who might not have this context. Because I'm if I'm reading these in chronological order, I would have to read the Aftermath trilogy side by side with this comic. I would say each part of the trilogy would have to be read between each part of the. I would read Aftermath for the first Battle of Jakku miniseries, Life Debt, which is the second Aftermath book, second miniseries, and then Empire's End, and even then you'd be spoiling yourself on certain parts because Gallus Rex dying and stuff like that. If you no matter what happens, you're gonna spoil yourself on parts.
Yeah.
and narratively that's like it works, but also it's like, how does that work for newcomers? Um, I like the writing though. A lot of people. I was reading a lot of reviews as this was coming out. I didn't read the comic as it was coming out, but I read a lot of reviews, and a lot of people didn't like the comic as it was coming out, which I find weird. I think it's well written. Alex Segura is really good at writing it. He knows how to write comics, in my opinion. I like the writing and the narrative structure of it all. Um, it goes all over the place, but you kind of have to, because we're getting like almost 4 different faction storylines going on. Because we have like the New Republic, Adelhard's Empire, the Gallus Rex Empire pre First Order, and then the Spice Runners.
Yep.
And then even then, there's like other factions within these factions that we're following, and so like there's so much going on that it has to be written that way, and it makes sense that so much is going on because they have to set up how the New Republic gets to this point, because right now they are at a weak point, but they're also, because they're on a very delicate balance, because the whole like we were saying, the Battle of Jakku is like it's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Like everybody can sit like before the new canon, everybody thought, oh, Endor, yay, Empire just disappeared, and even then we didn't really believe that, because Legends stuff is all about the Imperial like factions still existing and warlords and everybody like all the Imperial high commands basically became warlords and started to like parse out the Empire's remains and then start fights with the New Republic. And then in the new canon they kind of keep that idea, but a little bit more well contained. They're still like I wouldn't call them warlords, but there are like Imperial factions.
Yeah.
But like the Mandalorian series and Aftermath and this kind of prove that while there are warlords, they're actually playing the long con and actually working together secretly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's smart. That's smart writing.
Well, yes, they are.
But also there are
more holdouts.
Yeah, and then you have like actual warlords like Adelhard. I'd argue he's more warlord. He is
probably around the time like you've gone crazy and are starting.
Well, I'd say even by Iron Blockade, he's like, because he's like, fuck the rest of what the Empire's saying. I'm doing my own shit. That's warlord behavior if I ever saw it.
Adelhard, I am the only true son of the Empire left, he said, while raving like a lunatic.
Yeah. And then, of course, we get Acolytes of the Beyond.
Have you seen this witch lady?
Yeah, we get the Acolytes of the Beyond, which has the witch lady, which is also tied into Aftermath, because they reference them. We get, like, because Aftermath has, like interlude chapters, and they give us, like, other pieces of what's going on in the galaxy. And the Acolytes of the Beyond are referenced, but we don't get a lot about them yet. And so, seeing them fully in action here is very interesting. They're almost a Knights of Ren sort of situation where they're kind of another Sith faction, but they're like a dark side faction within the Empire that was working, because we learned that they were working for Tup, who's like the high dark side like representative for the Empire, because we saw him in Return of the Jedi. He's the guy that's in the meeting with Palpatine before Luke shows up, when Luke gets on, like when they bring Luke up the elevator with Vader to the Death Star. He's in that meeting with Palpatine, and then Palpatine sends them away once Luke shows up, and he's like, okay, time for me to do my dark side thing. And Yup Tashu has been like, he's always been kind of a figure in the background that, like, even in Legends, they kind of try to make him more important, which is kind of what this is doing, where they're kind of like, oh, he's in charge of the Force, like he's basically in charge of that occult shit that the Empire keeps like their own little section of. Like, we've got the cult side of things. Palpatine's interested in the occult.
He's over here. You're gonna be part of Section 93.
Yeah, and so
don't tell anybody about it, or we'll kill you.
But now Yup can do whatever he wants, because Palpatine's gone.
Yep.
But I think Yup is also in on the big plan, which is why he has he betrays Adelhard so many times
Yeah.
through. But also, like, what's her name? The witch. I forget her name now. The main. She, like, betrays him for her own reasons at the same time. And then we got also a New Republic spy within his faction. And,
Yeah. Fro gets betrayed a lot.
yeah.
Except for
His
that
his only true loyalist is Brog.
Brog. And you know what? That's a good choice.
He's your muscle, so yeah.
Yeah.
At least he stands by your side. We also get like Star Wars Resistance cameo because one of the pilots is from that. So for you 5 Resistance fans out there, I just made Chase mad.
Oh, we get the fucking return of Dr. Aphra.
Yep, for a little bit, just a
little
cameo. She's like, "Hey, I know you're looking for Force artifacts. That's not the real thing, you dum dum."
Good luck.
Which also is a tie into the Battlefront 2 campaign, because the one mission with Luke is when he gets the compass. So like we don't get to see the mission obviously in the comic because we play it in the video game. That's why they cut away from it. They're like, "Oh yeah, I already got this I went to go get a compass on this planet. Hey, I got the compass." It's because you're meant to go play it.
I'm beginning to think that compass just works like the fucking one from Pirates of the Caribbean.
But no, and then of course at the same time you got Adelhard like trying to weaken the New Republic faction by sending assassins to kill like.
He sends a lot of assassins. Actually,
He hires bounty hunters specifically from the Spice Runners to start killing senators before they can agree to join the New Republic Senate, and so.
I'm like
As well as try to take out Mon Mothma and Leia
yeah.
directly. Mm-hmm. Which does not work because Luke happens to be there that day.
Although the bounty hunter is like, well, I guess I can't let them know that I'm here to assassinate
The president.
the president. So he just turns to Luke and he's like, "You'll never be safe from the acolytes of the beyond." And Luke is like, "Okay." And
I'm already fighting them.
this doesn't change anything.
And so yeah, so the comic goes on like that. Adelhard gets so many betrayals to the point of eventually gets Shanghai. The man gets like kicked off. Like they just do a full on mutiny on his ship and kick him and Brog off. As things are kicking off with the New Republic battling them, and also some of the Spice Runners turning on them, but not all of them.
Yeah.
And like it's the worst time for this betrayal. But then the Acolyte of Beyond Witch is like, "I'm in charge of the Iron Blockade now."
Mm-hmm.
And then Brog gets like stranded on the planet's surface, and he's like, at the same time, I can just do what every good crime lord does. I'm in prison, but I can control things from in the prison.
Yep.
Which means I have plausible deniability, baby.
Yep.
Because it can't be me. As far as y'all are concerned, I'm either dead or stranded.
Yep.
Too bad Luke's like, "Nah, I think he's around still."
Yeah. Luke is like, "I need to go make sure that he's dead."
Because he already survived once, because we boarded his ship. I saved a bunch of people. Also, possible romance going on? Good friendship romance?
Maybe.
It's hard to tell with Luke.
It's hard. Luke, the job comes first.
With, I really like the character. She's really cool. I forget her name, though. Daughter of Spice Runner leader. But not like because he's in charge of the Spice Runners, but he's not in charge of the Kajimi Spice Runner. Like, he's in charge of like his own faction. And then she, like, we don't learn that she's the daughter to him until like the end. But like they're always hinting at it.
Yeah.
Like there's something more to her. Like Valence almost blurts out. He's like, "Aren't you?" And then
She goes,
"Shut up.
Don't
We're in the middle of a battle."
Later.
Later.
Don't tell him.
We don't talk about that. Valence almost blows her cover. Valence, you're a smarter man than that. Well, no. No, he's muscle first.
He's cyborg.
He muscle first, brain second.
Mhm.
Even before he was even before he was full cyborg, he's muscles first, brain second.
Yep. And,
We love him though.
Yeah, he's great. I hope that I really am like, can we just let him have a win?
Can we let him and Han just go off on an adventure together and be besties?
Another thing, and this is in regards to Han's appearance in this.
Hans
comic
beard?
book. That threw me off so hard.
You don't know about Han's beard
I
arc?
did not.
Oh, Han's beard arc is the best.
It's like, what the fuck who is this? I was like,
Yeah, because they reference Life Debt, because they talk about the Aftermath book, because they talk about how he and Chewbacca are off trying to free the Wookiees. And then they're like, yeah, and we have no contact with him because of all that. And then he comes back reeling in because he's like, I gotta save my wife.
Yeah.
I gotta save my wife because she's pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
Luke's like, I gotta save my sister because she's pregnant.
Yep. Leia's over here like, I am so fucking tired of these assassins.
Leia's like, I'm pregnant, but I can take care of myself.
Yeah. Like, it's an assassin number 4.
Even the poor Republic spy that dies protecting Leia. She's like, I'm gonna protect you, and Leia's like, no, I'm protecting you.
Yep.
And then she dies, and then Leia's like, I couldn't protect her.
Yeah, well, add that to the list of names, Leia.
It's also not your fault, okay? Like,
Yeah.
you take these too personally.
Sorry.
I understand why.
Yeah.
You're like a leader, and so like you're like,
If it didn't weigh on you, that would be a problem.
yeah. But also like, maybe go easier on yourself, just a smidge.
Yeah.
Like you're in a war still. Like people are gonna die. You can't. You can't let every single death weigh
It's
on
not
you as
all
heavily.
in.
Like Leia lets every death weigh on her, and like I respect it to a degree, but girl, you gotta.
Yeah, chill.
It's Dr. Cox from Scrubs, where it's like, if we let every death like get to us, then we can't do the job.
You gotta pick the ones you care about.
Yeah.
As fucked up as it is, you need to do that.
Like you can still care about them, just don't let it drive you to depression. Don't go insane caring about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like just girl, get a therapist. Does the New Republic have like public health? Like, did they have good like public health care? I know the Old Republic had good public health care, but does the New Republic have? Or are they on an insurance situation?
I feel like they're on an insurance situation.
I know at least the High Republic and the Old Republic had like public health care, although probably late Old Republic, like once we start hitting like the prequel era, they probably went more insurance because we know that late stage capitalism hit. Back to late stage capitalism. We can't get away from it because the whole prequel era is about late stage capitalism.
Fucking Star Wars economics don't make any goddamn sense.
But yeah, so yeah, they everybody reunites. The heroes reunite, and they're like, "All right, time for the last stand." And I guess like months pass by throughout each comic, because like Leia gets pregnant. Like Leia's pregnant by the end of. Actually, by the end of it, she has the fucking baby.
Yep.
She has been.
She has been. He's born.
We see baby Ben.
Yep.
Which is just in time for the Legacy of Vader comics to start coming out, because we get the early days of Kylo Ren.
They're like, the future's looking bright.
And then Kylo Ren, baby.
Yep.
But yeah, because immediately after you finish the comics, like, ad for Legacy of Vader, and it's like, oh yeah, that happens.
Yeah, right.
You're like, oh yeah, the sequels happen. Ben gets there, eventually.
It's a little bit of a ride.
People die. Worlds die. But eventually Ben gets there. Ben dies. But he gets there.
He gets there. It takes a while.
But yeah, no, I really like this comic. Because this whole like it's hard to talk about every little thing because it's so
Yeah.
there's just so much. I like the plotting. I like the tie-ins to everything, which honestly I would give it a 9 if not for the like.
It is a case of
I would give them a 9, but I could see like somebody else giving it an 8 because of like just lack like too many tie-ins to other things where it's like it rewards you. I don't know if it punishes you for not knowing things. It's hard for me as a reader to say that because I know the things. But do you feel punished as a reader
No.
reading any of it? Like
you
Gallus
can't give it a 9, but I fucking will.
Gallus Rex. Like does the Gallus? You don't feel punished with the Gallus Rex
No.
things. You feel
I'm
like
he's a decent
good
side villain.
yeah.
I'm not upset, but also I don't have like 7 other fucking things of context.
yeah, because there's the Aftermath trilogy, Battlefront 2, Lost Stars, arguably, although Lost Stars really it's only the Battle of Jakku chapters, which are near the end of the book. So I guess I won't count Lost Stars. And then the Shattered Empire comic, which was like the first comic they did once when they were prepping for the sequel trilogy game stuff.
I enjoyed it. I'm sorry it took me.
No. It's a lot. I mean, it was 12 issues. I'll give it a 9 then, because like that's my only concern. But if it's not a concern for you, then there's no concern. And Alex Segura liked my post on Blue Sky when because I said, hey, it makes me upset that the only thing that makes me upset is Star Wars Uprising. So I guess 5 things, six things that you for context. It's upsetting that Star Wars Uprising you can't play it anymore because I love seeing Adelhard and Brog back, baby, because they're good villains. And then Alex Segura liked that post, and I was like, hell yeah. Because I was like, the Battle of Jakku, baby. And like, it's upsetting that we have lost media in new canon. It's really upsetting there's lost media and there's no way to play it. Like, the only way you can experience the story now is somebody, thankfully, within the fan community, and I think we'll read it. Somebody put together the entire script of the story of the game, including the side quests. But they put it like the side quests, they made it like extra chapters at the end, like almost an appendix, where you just can read the main story, and then if you want to read the side quest, you can. So I think we'll read that at some point. We might make that a non-main topic. We'll make that like something within the topics when we get to that point in Star Wars timeline. I just wish we could play it, because I think you would like the game too. And I feel like it's the perfect game. It made no sense to me that they never ported it as a single-player game. Like, they never went, you know what, this could run as a single-player game. Because it's just Diablo in Star Wars with blasters. You play as a smuggler. And then eventually they gave you the ability to get a lightsaber later on. Once people were like, hey, we want lightsabers. And the game developers were like, it is Star Wars. We'll give them lightsabers. But we'll make you work for it. You gotta do a bunch of side quests to get it. Gotta do a whole new arc to get it. But yeah, that might be the only thing I don't like about this comic, is it reminds me I can't play Uprising. But if that's my complaint, it's still a 9.
Yep. Okay, so we're going
9-9.
9-9
And then 8. Yeah. I think that's fair. I think we judge those pretty fairly. They're really good comics. I highly suggest both. I mean, if you're a High Republic fan, I feel like Echoes of Fear is kind of almost necessary reading.
Yeah.
We'll find out how necessary with the future books, which are coming. This is the last year of High Republic, by the way. Last year of High Republic, or at least for the big Project Luminous stuff, right? For the main events. Obviously, I think they'll do more High Republic era content after the High Republic era, like once they're done telling the story with Marchion Ro and all that. But the Marchion Ro saga will end, whatever they want to call it. Project Luminous was the original project name when they were developing it. I don't know what they will call it when it's done, but the Marchion Ro saga. Once that ends, then that ends this year. It's kind of interesting, but we'll talk about that more when we get there.
Yeah.
Let's not think about it right yet. We got a couple months. We got months. We don't have to worry about it yet. We can be sad when that actually happens. As for after Battle of Jakku, I feel really good that we're in a new era for Star Wars comics as well, because they're gonna start publishing. They're still gonna start publishing post original trilogy stuff, still pre sequel, but it's pre Mando as well. Like we're getting immediately after this because they set up like what's gonna happen after at the end of Battle of Jakku. They kind of set up an enemy within the shadows that's gonna try to take down the New Republic. And so I think it's what's her name, because she didn't die. I don't think.
Yeah.
The witch. Reyna Oscure. Yep. Reyna. Anyways, yeah, I think Reyna's gonna be the big bad for a little bit. I think they're gonna focus on the Acolytes of the Beyond for like the first arc, for Luke's parts. Anyways, I don't know what they'll do for everybody else's. We'll get a lot of Leia in politics probably, and reasons why Han abandons the family, because we know that Han abandons the family for a bit. So probably some adventures with Han and our boy. Let's get them together again. They haven't worked together in years. Thank you all for watching today's episode of Escape Reality Star Wars Talk. I've been your host, Caleb. Be sure to like, comment, follow, subscribe to us. You can find us at Escape Reality Films on YouTube, Twitch, Kick, TikTok, and Blue Sky. You can also show your support for us by joining our Patreon, which is at Escape Reality Films. Shout out to Jennifer Brantley.
Woo!
There you can watch our watch our YouTube content before it's publicly available. Also, be sure to check out our Discord, which is also linked wherever you are watching, which in this case, since we're pre-recording YouTube, so it's linked down below. And that's how you can become part of our community. Also, speaking of community, we have some friends of ours at the Steam_Dungeon on YouTube who do some D&D content with their Trials of Nebu D&D.
They are back from hiatus, by the way.
Okay, so they've been on hiatus, but they are back, and they do them live generally on Sundays from 5 to 7 Central. But if you want to catch up on their videos, maybe you can't watch them during that time, or you just want to catch up on older streams, they keep the VODs on the YouTube channel.
It's taking more of a bi-weekly schedule, so it's easier to catch up now.
Yeah. And so, once again, that's on the Steam_Dungeon on YouTube. Once again, thank you all for watching us. Join us next week, where next time we're going to do some more comics. We're going to continue our adventures in the High Republic with Dispatches from the Occlusion Zone. And we're going to get some Ewoks. And we're going to get a little bit of preview of what's going to happen within the mainline Star Wars comics with A New Legacy. All right. Thank you all once again. See you next time. I've spoken.
Y'all be safe out there.